So, you want to read Nietzsche for the cloud and don't know where to start. Don't worry, I got you. I hope that by the end of this little video, you'll have a good entry point in the work and the mind of one of the most quoted thinkers out there. Definitely one of the most influential because, as we shall see, he's pretty diverse. And because he's diverse, he influenced a lot of people in a lot of different ways. I'm going to talk about him the way he influenced me. I'm a writer myself, Stefan Baccio, one of the greatest alive. Check my work out on Substack, Nether Street Blues. But he didn't influence me as a philosopher. I don't think that I really revisited his more serious philosophical books. I read him nowadays as a poet. And I have with me 3 books. 2 of them I really enjoy. One doesn't really hold up, Beyond Good and Evil. Now, let's start with the big one. Thus Spoke Zarathustra, or Thus Spake Zarathustra, as it has been translated. This is usually described as a philosophical novel, and personally, even though I'm not a huge believer in the idea of fixed genres, I still think it's a bit of a misnomer. Zarathustra is actually a poem, a long prose poem, if you ask me. It has a lot of epic aspects. There is a lot of narrative involved. Obviously, it's philosophical, but even Nietzsche himself said that he was going for the musicality of it. He wanted to be Richard Wagner's heir. That's his words, not mine. And I admit I haven't read him in the original German yet, but I read him in both Romanian and English. And the musicality of the text, it's embedded in the very core of the project, deeper than words, deeper than structure. It's the idea, it's life as music in a sense. And this relates to Nietzsche's views, especially the concept of amor fati, the love of fate, the love of life, not just endurance when it comes to the vicissitudes of life, but actual enjoyment of them, loving one's circumstances. And that's not just something that's been intellectually touched upon by Nietzsche. It was something that he lived with. He was a man that had a lot of health issues. Later in life, he also had mental health issues, but he pressed on and he adapted. Even there was a change in his writing when he had to start using a typewriter. He was one of the early adopters of the typewriter as a method for writing because he couldn't write longhand anymore due to his failing health. And a friend remarked to him that his words changed, they became more like iron. And that's when Nietzsche wrote one of his most famous aphorisms, that the tools that we use to change the world also change ourselves. And that's something that relates to another thing that's at the core of Thus Spoke Zarathustra, which is paradox. This is a book that contradicts itself a lot. There's even a contradiction in the title, in the full title, a book for all and none. And I think that's really the role of a poet over the role of a philosopher. A poet creates a space for us to confront each other. And paradox, but then there's a lot of paradoxes. They don't serve to provide an answer. They serve to make us re-examine our lives, our beliefs, and this is something that we see across cultures. It's very obvious in the Zen koans, which, when you read them and you come with a rationalistic mindset, they don't make any sense. But, once you're more spiritually attuned, or if you're in a spiritually attuned mood when you're reading a good koan, it makes you examine it by applying it to your own life. And I think this is something that Nietzsche was going in Zarathustra. He was confronting himself and the future readers of the book with a lot of interesting ideas. That's here we get him talking about the Übermensch, the death of God, the eternal recurrence, amor fati, and many, many different ideas. And still, it's not a book that tries to make a point. It doesn't try to leave you with, a neat little summary of bullet points. No, it really wants to change you as a thinker, as a person. And no, nowadays we're used to this kind of approach. Obviously, we've all been influenced one way or another by the Beats, who were influenced by Eastern mysticism. But at the time when Nietzsche was writing, which was in the early 1880s, people were still under the rationalistic mindset. They still had the Enlightenment mindset of categorizing the world, of trying to cut reality into neat little pieces that can be assembled in a system. And Nietzsche was rallying against that. He was raging against that. And that's very obvious in Zarathustra. But it all didn't start with Zarathustra. Another one of my favorite books that I don't have a physical copy of is The Birth of Tragedy, which is a very interesting lens to look at Greek culture and to look at the human experiences as a whole. Yet, the thing is, from what I've read, as far as I know, and please correct me in the comments, this is just a starting point for a discussion. I don't have all the answers. Actually, I only have questions. Coming back to the Greeks and the birth of tragedy. If you're going to read it, my advice is don't take it as gospel truth to how all the ancient Greeks operated and lived and what they believed. That's just Nietzsche's take on them. He was a classicist, so he knows his stuff. I'm not debating that. But considering the fact that he was writing in the 19th century, probably subsequent research contradicted at least some of what he stated in the book. But beyond that, The Birth of Tragedy puts forth important concepts that we still see reference to this day, the Apollonian and the Dionysiac. the way that the way in which art creates a space for one to basically endure reality. He calls it, I think, or it has been called metaphysics, that tragedy provides through its catharsis, a metaphysical consolation. It's how we endure art to how endure life through art. And I think I'm gonna quote Stephen King here, who said recently that um, life isn't a support system for art, it's the other way around. And that's basically one of Nietzsche's points in The Birth of Tragedy. It's a very beautiful book. It's maybe, you know, it's outdated in some points, but I definitely suggest you read The Birth of Tragedy. You'll get a lot out of it. It's not very long, and it's pretty clear. It doesn't deal with paradoxes the way that Zarathustra does. And if you want an even better guide to his work than this video, and probably they're out there, but if you want from the man himself, then go for Ecce Homo. Here is the man. I Show You the Man by Nietzsche. This, again, it's pure poetry. It's a poetical, intellectual autobiography. He reviews his life and his works, but he's not being serious. He's being hyperbolic. He's being sarcastic. He's at the same time he's puffing himself up, but he's also being self-deprecating. It's a really fun read, and you know, if you want clarity with Nietzsche, he won't give you clarity. He will make you ask questions, and probably you will end up with clarity if you're being serious about it. And I think, as a final thought, I think that Nietzsche famously said that he is writing for the future, and I've come to understand what he meant. He was in a still very enlightenment mindset, and people weren't comfortable with paradoxes, with contradictions. Um, Around that same time period, Walt Whitman famously wrote, "I contradict myself, good, then I contradict myself." And that was some very edgy thinking at the time. Nowadays, we're contradicting ourselves all the time. For one, I complain about the internet when writing on the internet. I complain about social media on social media. That's just me. And those are just the obvious ones, but we're all full of contradictions. But I think, really, and this is actually something that's been used in executive coaching as well. You know, it's about putting forth the paradox and using it like a mirror to examine ourselves. This is what my mentor Alain Cardon does with companies. He writes a lot about paradox, and he's not like a philosopher that, you know, like navel gazes and discusses. He's confronting people with paradoxes, and this is what Nietzsche was doing almost over a century and a half ago. And I think that's why, you know, Nietzsche is still relevant today, at least for me. There are better discussions about him as a philosopher. This is, I hope, just a little video to help you get interested in him and consider him in a light that might be fruitful. Because, you know, if you go and start with something like Beyond Good and Evil and you read him for the politics, I don't care about what politics you have. probably won't get a lot out of it. He's not being very systematic. He's not really interested in making a point as much as raising a point. And that's it. Until next time, keep reading literature that lingers. That includes Nietzsche, at least for me. He lingered for more than 15 years of my life. Much love. Thanks for watching. I didn't stumble on this place by chance. I don't believe in coincidences. This is a place where true literature lives and intellectual discussion thrives. Please be sure to like, subscribe and share this video. It really helps the channel. Thank you very much for your support and I'll see you soon.